I stepped into my sister's house, the air thick with unspoken words and lingering tension. Her home, tucked away at the end of a quiet street, exuded an unsettling warmth, a place where echoes of the past hung heavily in the atmosphere. Her arms enveloped me in a hauntingly familiar embrace. "It's been too long," she said, her voice laced with an undercurrent of longing, as she beckoned me inside. The days crept by, shrouded in an unsettling stillness. Her son, my nephew Ethan, had recently returned home after completing graduate school, and his presence shifted the atmosphere in ways that were almost palpable. At 25, he had transformed from the boy I once knew into a man, exuding a quiet confidence that was both captivating and unsettling, his easy smile masking the complexities beneath. We lingered on the porch, the air thick with unspoken words, as we exchanged stories that danced between laughter and silence. He would share with me the tales of his journeys, the breathtaking landscapes he had encountered, and the unforgettable souls he had crossed paths with. His voice carried a weight of contemplation, each word carefully chosen, and I was drawn in, entranced by the intensity of his delivery. One evening, as the sky bled into a dusky pink, he recounted a ludicrous tale of getting lost in Italy, and I found myself laughing harder than I had in months, the joy mingling with an undercurrent of something deeper. His gaze lingered on me, a mixture of vulnerability and intensity swirling within his eyes. "I'm glad you're here," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. For a fleeting moment, a tumultuous sensation ignited within me, an unsettling warmth intertwined with a profound confusion. I forcefully shoved the thought away as if it were a dark shadow creeping too close for comfort. As time passed, I began to observe unsettling details lurking in the shadows. Small moments that sent my heart racing. Text: he prepared my coffee exactly as I preferred, without a single word exchanged between us. Text: the way he would gently drape a blanket over my shoulders, a tender gesture that lingered in the air, especially when I dozed off on the couch, felt like a silent promise wrapped in warmth. The intensity of his gaze, lingering just a heartbeat longer than necessary when our eyes locked, sent a shiver down my spine. One fateful afternoon, I wrestled with a stubborn jar in the kitchen, the tension mounting with each futile twist of the lid. Ethan moved in close, his hand reaching over to assist, the air thick with unspoken tension. His hand grazed mine, and in that fleeting moment, time itself appeared to stand still. He said it with a smile, but his words barely reached me, lost in the overwhelming silence that enveloped us. My thoughts spiraled out of control, and I berated myself for succumbing to these emotions. He was everything to us. This was never meant to unfold like this. That night, I tossed and turned, haunted by the echoes of those moments swirling relentlessly in my mind. I clung to the thought that I felt secure in his presence, that the closeness between us was instinctive, almost inevitable. Yet deep within, my heart murmured a truth I was not prepared to confront. The following evening, we found ourselves outside once more, the air thick with unspoken words and lingering anticipation. The air hung heavy with the distant promise of rain. He thrust a cup of tea into my hands, the steam swirling ominously around us. "Are you all right?" he inquired, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, yet the words lodged painfully in my throat. I felt an overwhelming urge to reveal it all to him, the emotions I struggled to articulate, the way my heart ached, irresistibly drawn to him. Yet I remained silent. Instead, I forced a smile and took a sip, masking the storm brewing beneath the surface. Yet deep within, I understood that everything had changed. The morning sun poured through the window, casting long shadows as I sat at the dining table, my hands stirring the coffee with a sense of unease, lost in thought. My thoughts spiraled back to the moment his hand had fleetingly grazed mine. It seemed absurd to linger on it, yet the memory haunted me relentlessly. He stepped inside, his fitted shirt and jeans clinging to him in a way that hinted at the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing the intensity of the moment. I couldn't help but be captivated by the way his forearms tensed and flexed with each deliberate movement. "You're unusually quiet today," he said, his voice low as he pulled out a chair beside me, the air thick with unspoken words. As I pondered, I whispered to myself, struggling to maintain a facade of cheerfulness. Yet he remained an undeniable presence in my thoughts. The way his voice dipped into a gentle whisper when he addressed me, the way his eyes lingered on mine, a moment stretching into eternity. That fateful afternoon, I made the choice to step into the kitchen and lend him a hand. As I stepped through the door, I found him immersed in the rhythmic chopping of vegetables, each slice echoing in the charged silence of the room. "Do you require assistance?" He extended the offer, a weighty silence hanging in the air. His smile was sharp, a flicker of mischief dancing in his eyes. "Absolutely, but I must emphasize how deeply serious I am about my cooking." His playful tone sparked a fleeting moment of laughter, but beneath the surface, shadows lingered, reminding me of the weight that still pressed down. We navigated the cramped space with a charged energy, passing utensils with a flicker of tension, trading jokes that hung in the air, our shoulders brushing against one another, igniting an unspoken connection. In a moment charged with anticipation, I reached for a cutting board, my hand colliding with his in a sudden, electric encounter. Our fingers brushed against each other, and in that fleeting moment, time seemed to stand still, leaving us suspended in a breathless silence. Apologies escaped my lips in a hurried breath as I instinctively recoiled. He smiled, yet a shadow flickered in his eyes, hinting at unspoken turmoil. A moment of deep reflection. That night, we found ourselves in the dimly lit living room, the flickering screen casting shadows as we watched a movie, tension hanging thick in the air. The storm outside howled with fury, rattling the windows as I huddled deeper into the blanket, seeking solace from the chaos that surrounded me. Silently, he moved in, his arm enveloping my shoulders with a weight that spoke volumes. His warmth enveloped me, igniting a fierce rhythm in my chest that echoed with urgency. I should have pulled away, but instead I found myself leaning in, my head resting against him, caught in a moment that felt both dangerous and inevitable. I convinced myself it was harmless, merely solace amidst the raging tempest of the night. Yet, the way his fingers lingered, tracing soft circles on my arm, whispered secrets that contradicted his words. The following day, I desperately sought to create a chasm between us. I lingered upstairs, lost in a facade of busyness, the weight of unspoken truths hanging heavily in the air. Yet, when he summoned me for lunch, I found myself unable to resist his call. The air hung heavy with unspoken words as we lingered in silence, the weight of anticipation thickening until he finally broke the stillness. "You've been avoiding me," he murmured, his voice laced with an unsettling tension. Stilled, I began, yet the words eluded me, trapped in a silence that felt suffocating. "You don't have to explain," he said, his eyes piercing into mine, a storm of unspoken words swirling between us. "I understand completely." Yet he didn't, not truly. What I felt gripped me with a fear deeper than I dared to acknowledge. As dusk fell, a menacing storm began to gather on the horizon. The power abruptly vanished, plunging the room into darkness. He fumbled for candles, his heart racing, and finally lit a few, placing one on the table as shadows danced ominously around him. He sat across from me, the flickering light dancing ominously, casting haunting shadows across his face. "You've changed," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. His gaze locked onto mine, unyielding and intense. "I suppose," I murmured, my voice barely escaping my lips. He leaned forward, his elbows digging into his knees, a storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. "You've consumed my thoughts," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I understand that I shouldn't feel this way, but—" He halted abruptly, a palpable fear gripping him, as if the very act of moving forward could unleash something he wasn't ready to face. My heart pounded fiercely. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to speak up, to put an end to this before it spiraled into something irreversible. Yet I chose not to. As our eyes locked, an undeniable connection surged between us, revealing that he was not solitary in his turmoil. "I feel it too," I confessed, my voice trembling on the edge of silence. He released a slow breath, as if he had been suspended in time, waiting for the moment to finally break free. A sense of impending doom loomed, as if an irreversible event was on the brink of unfolding. But then he leaned back, his fingers tangling in his hair, a moment of uncertainty hanging in the air. "This isn't right," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper, laden with unease. "Your family means everything to me, and I can't bear the thought of causing you pain." I swallowed, my throat tight with apprehension. "I understand." The silence loomed between us, thick with unspoken words and fraught with tension. "I believe it's time for me to leave," I finally admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. He remained silent. He merely nodded, a silent acknowledgement that hung heavy in the air. Perhaps that is the wisest choice. The morning of my departure loomed ominously, arriving far too soon. I packed my bag in silence, my thoughts a chaotic web of uncertainty. Before departing, I lingered at the kitchen table, pen trembling in my hand as I poured my thoughts into a note. I find myself engulfed in a whirlwind of emotions, uncertain of their significance or whether I should even allow myself to experience them. Yet, deep down, I am certain that whatever it is, it holds an undeniable truth, and I can sense that you feel it as well. I'm walking away, compelled by a truth that weighs heavily on my heart. Yet, these memories will forever weigh heavily on my heart. Thank you for enveloping me in a sense of safety, for showing me the depth of your care, and for truly seeing me. I set the note down on the counter, my heart racing as I turned and walked away, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. I had hardly taken 2 steps when my phone shattered the silence with its piercing ring. His name appeared on the screen and time seemed to stand still. "I read your note," he said, his voice heavy with unspoken words. His voice trembled with an unspoken weight. "And I want you to understand, you are not facing this battle by yourself." Tears brimmed at the edges of my eyes, threatening to spill over. Yet, his next words emerged with unwavering resolve. "I care about you far too deeply to allow this to spiral into a regret we can't escape." I grasped the weight of it, my voice barely a breath. "You hold a unique place in my heart. That doesn't have to shift even as you prepare to depart." A smile, tinged with both sweetness and sorrow, flickered across my lips. "Look after yourself, for the weight of the world can be heavy and you must be your own refuge in the storm. You as well. And if you ever find yourself in need, know that I will always be here for you." I hung up the phone, my heart racing as I drew in a shaky breath. Some connections are destined to be treasured even when they can never evolve into something greater.